going to. The Americans, viewers, perhaps bent a little out of shape by the success of the BRICS summit and the success of India's diplomacy, not to mention the thaw in India-China relations. The US has proceeded to give a lecture on ethics to India. US envoy to India, Eric Garcetti, has seemingly sanctimoniously wagged a finger at India and then patronizingly explained how the US expects others to behave with it. He says, and I quote, "We have said two things from the beginning. This sort of behavior is unacceptable from any country to another country, certainly unacceptable to us as Americans. There's a red line coming from an enemy or a closest friend. That's our first responsibility, no matter who they are or what they say, to draw a line that murder for hire is illegal, and it is in every country. We take terrorist acts, not words, but acts, incredibly seriously." Focus on the last part, the clause, we take terrorist acts, not words, but acts incredibly seriously. In other words, the US is telling us, don't bother about the threats being issued against your country or your leader or your diplomats, because words aren't that much of a concern to us. This is laughable hypocrisy, but before I elaborate, let's first call out the US on the first bit of what Garcetti said, which is that the US finds actions by foreign countries who legitimately look to protect their interests, quote, unacceptable, unquote. This is coming from a country that is frequently accused of transgressing international law. Here are the hard facts. Chile, 1973, Salvador Allende killed in CIA-backed coup. Brazil, 1975, Vladimir Herzog tortured and killed by the CIA-trained forces. Pakistan, 2004 and 2018, over 400 drone strikes killed approximately 2,500 to 3,500 people, including civilians. Yemen, 2002 to 2020, 18 years, hundreds of drone strikes killed around 1,000 to 2,000 people. Libya, 2011, drone strikes targeted Gaddafi loyalists. Pakistan, 2011, Navy SEALs killed bin Laden in Abbottabad. Pakistan, 2008, Abu Layth al-Libi, killed in CIA drone strike and special operations raid. Syria, Imad Mughniya, killed in CIA-operated drone strike. Iraq, 2020, Qasem Soleimani, killed by drone strike. Now, as I said, here are more hard facts that expose Garcetti's preachy take. We, quote, take terrorist acts, not words, but acts seriously, unquote. Threat in January 2024, David Hansen puts out a post. He says, Joe and Kamala, I'm asking you to resign on Monday. Your alternative is death brutally murdered, unquote. What did the US do, viewers? These were words. These were not actions. David Michael Hansen arrested for online threats against President and the Vice President. Yet, viewers, the same month, January 2024, this man, Gurpantwin Singh Pannu, who the Americans are protecting, he said, I dare Modi, you come to Delhi without your security. If you're a popular leader, come to Delhi on Republic Day without security. And SFJ, that is the Sikhs for Justice, is going to avenge the assassination of Shahid Nijjar, unquote. What did the US do? Court admits the plea by Pannun, seeking arrest of top Indian officials in alleged assassination bid, viewers. The headmasterly lesson in ethics from the US has got the goat of many prominent Indians who are accusing it of lacking the moral authority to lecture India. Kanwal Sibal, former Foreign Secretary, said this, and I quote, this is an unacceptable level of public hectoring. After India has sent a team to the US and is cooperating, why continue to make aggressive public statements? Time for India to state publicly too that it will hold the US responsible for any consequences resulting from Pannu's open threats against Indian airlines, and will demand accountability. Already hoax terrorist threats encouraged by US and Canadian unwillingness to rein in terrorist threats are disrupting air flights in India. Let's open this out, viewers. Does the United States, that bends every law, have the right to preach ethics? It's a fundamental question, viewers. And I want to go across to journalist, an analyst from the United States first. I want to bring in Ray Locker, who's also an author. Mr. Ray Locker, do we need this lesson in morality from all countries? United States? I mean, do we really?
Well, do you need it? No. Are we going to give it to you? Probably. I mean, look, the United States has been hypocritical for a long, long time. You look at the array of facts that you displayed leading up to this. I mean, it's inescapable. And when you talk about Chile, it was not just 1973, it was 1970 where we tried to sabotage the election there and keep Allende from being elected. I think if I'm going to try to wade into what Ambassador Garcetti said, the way things go here primarily is you're allowed to be in this country and criticize another country. What you're not allowed to do is openly conspire or to commit a crime. So I think what Panun has been doing
You're not allowed to do that,
damaging.
Mr. Locker. You can do it.
You're n-
America can do it globally, everywhere, and they're allowed to do it. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm not saying we're allowed to do
Why
it.
are you
I'm saying
supporting
the government
Israel?
does it.
Why are you
But what
supporting
happens
Israel?
is-
Why are you weaponizing Israel?
Well, because Israel is a longtime U.S. ally and it was
right.
attacked by a brutal
That's it,
terrorist
viewers.
organization.
That's the answer. That's the answer. Long time US ally, and therefore we can arm them to the teeth so they can carry out cross-border raids and knock out people. Look, viewers, I have no problem with that. What I have a problem with is hypocrisy. The US can because it can, you see. The US thinks it can lecture because it has a huge economy right now. And it thinks it's great. That's the bottom line here. This is who we are dealing with. Brahmachalani.
The real issue is this. Khalistan movement is practically dead in India. But some agencies in the Anglosphere countries apparently are seeking to revive Khalistan movement in India, Sikh militancy in India, by sheltering and shielding hardcore Sikh extremists that openly glorify terrorism, that issue terrorist threats against India from American soil, from Canadian soil, and from British soil. Now you take this case of Panun. Ambassador Garcetti was asked, how is it that the US allows Panun to make terrorist threats against India, not words, threats against India, which Garcetti admitted are crimes in US law. Panun has been making terrorist threats against India from US soil for a long time now.
True.
He, last November, a year ago, he said the goal is to balkanize India.
True.
And he threatened terrorist actions against New Delhi airport, against Air India.
Well, let's not amplify what he said. Yeah.
Okay, no, I'm saying that recently,
Yes.
recently he has warned passengers not to fly Air India.
True.
Between November 1st and 19. And coinciding with that threat, there have been a spate of hoax bomb threats against Indian flights that have disrupted air travel in India. Now, this is a very serious matter. These are not words, these are threats. And yet, he's operating with impunity from American soil. How can this be acceptable? The way things are going, the Biden administration risks damaging its relationship with India.
Well, we're Americans, we can do it, Mr. Critchley, isn't it? That's the attitude.
That's certainly true of some Americans, but we typically think of those as the worst of Americans with the kind of jingoistic version of patriotism, my country, right or wrong. I don't think it's correct or fair to describe all Americans that way, just like it's not correct or fair to describe all Indians in one particular way. It's a huge, a diverse country with a wide range of opinions. I'd also like to point out that the argument that we're entertaining here in the United States is often described, this form of argument is often described as whataboutism, which amounts to saying, well, what about the time you did this? What about the time you did that? And if you go through America's history, of course, you can find many cases where the United States has violated the principles it claims to stand for, as you can find with countries around the world, including, I would say, India. India has its own issues with freedom of speech. This is the perspective internationally anyway. Freedom of speech, influence over the media, and targeting of political rivals. Now, that sort of thing happens sometimes in the United States. Notably, we're very concerned that President Trump, if he's reelected, will return to doing exactly that kind of thing. If we cite the example of Chile, for example, yes, there are many abuses committed by the United States in Latin America, and it's a shameful history in many ways.
Yeah.
It also triggered the Church Commission hearings, for example, which constrained the ability of the CIA to do that sort of thing. So one of the greatest strengths of America is its ability to self-correct.
Okay.
And if we point to what's happening in the Middle East, there's intense controversy.
No, I'm
in the
not
United
going down
States
that
right
route.
now
This
over
is
the
a
situation in the Middle East.
conversation between the United States envoy, and you said whataboutery. There's a reason why I brought this up, this sort of hectoring tone, because the American state, the government came out and said, we're very satisfied that India is cooperating in this investigation. We're satisfied. These are not my words. This is the State Department spokesperson's words, and you probably are aware that he used these words, quote unquote. We're very satisfied with the Indian investigation, the cooperation they're extending. Yet, the envoy chooses to patronizingly give us a lecture. What is the need to grandstand? Mr. Iyer Mitra, what is the need to grandstand? I can't understand this. Between allies, you don't grandstand.
So Rahul, the problem is America, sees two versions of India. A fairly professional country that's good with software, and on the other side, they see Bollywood. And so consequently, you have two kinds of ambassadors. The technocrat, like say Rich Verma or Atul Keshav, who are fantastic ambassadors who could get things done. Or you frequently get clowns who are meant to cater to the Bollywood image of India, which is what Mr. Eric Garcetti is. He's, after all, a Hollywood transplant from LA mayor with no career in diplomacy, no diplomatic skills, who's really, his alternate career should have been a food blogger if you go by the embassy's Twitter timeline at any rate. Number one. Number two, see, he understands America. What he said is technically accurate. There's the Brandenburg Standard, which has to be a specific threat against a specific target, and Mr. Pannu also understands the law, and he weaves his stories around that. He's very careful to not breach that threshold. But what it tells you is Mr. Garcetti, and more importantly, the clumsy State Department staff around him, who I suspect are all DEI hire types with no real qualifications, don't understand India. Understand what America can do because of much higher policing and much higher human investment in policing. India can't do, and therefore we have to be very preventative in our approach as opposed to a preemptive in American policing in that sense and the legal system. And a man who doesn't understand the fundamentals of jurisprudence like that, in addition to his lack of diplomatic skills, becomes very problematic. It is two toxic traits coming together in the perfect storm, and I just hope America stops sending these political appointee clowns like. Okay. And this has been called out. He's treated like a joke by our foreign ministry. The foreign minister ignores him. The foreign secretary ignores him.
Look, I mean, I don't want to use epithets like joker, etc. But look, I mean, I can't stop you from saying what you're saying, though I'm going to distance myself from that. But viewers, just want to remind you. What did he say? He said, quote, we take terrorist acts, not words, but acts incredibly seriously. So we give an allowance for words. But viewers, I showed you how when a terrorist threatened, in words, not action, the lives of the president and the vice president, action was taken on American soil against an American. So there is hypocrisy here too. Why should that same standard, gold standard, not be applied universally? That's the fundamental question that Mr. Garcetti should be answering. I'll leave it at this, viewers. Your better judgment.